Durant and James Harden in the offseason when they were together playing pickup daily in Los Angeles. And James Harden went to the Rockets. He asked for the trade, said he wanted Brooklyn. He eventually expanded the list to 4 teams, but really the focus was Brooklyn and Philadelphia. And those were the 2 teams over the last 48, 72 hours before the trade that Houston was really focused on in trade talks. But ultimately for the Nets, their willingness to deliver Houston a multitude of first-round picks, 4 picks in all, including one that'll come from Cleveland, which is Milwaukee's first-round pick in 2022. That ultimately got the deal done. And now Brooklyn reunites. James Harden and Kevin Durant, obviously, they played together in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, went to the finals together once upon a time in OKC with Russell Westbrook as a part of that team as well. And just very quickly, what, if anything, does this mean as far as the Kyrie Irving situation is concerned?
Well, it means that Brooklyn now, with all 3 players eligible for free agency after next season, I think they can sleep a little better knowing that Kevin Durant, who is the focus of this organization, who they want to build it around, continue to build it around, that he has somebody in James Harden that they believe they can count on moving forward. And they hope that Kyrie Irving is a part of that too. But they need it as much as anything to be able to solidify Durant's future. And there is uncertainty right now about Kyrie Irving. He remains away from the team. There hasn't been significant communication between he and the team. And there's a lot of talking that's going to have to go on once he returns or as he returns. And I think for the Nets, not just having these 3 stars, but I think solidifying their future with Kevin Durant.
All right, we'll see where that goes. Woj, outstanding. Thank you. Let me now bring in Richard Jefferson, who knows all about playing on great teams, who played with Kyrie Irving in Cleveland, and you also work with the Nets and doing some of their games, so you know the ins and outs there. Let's live in a world where the 3 of them do come together first. Let's talk about that trio if they do play together. Can they win a championship this year?
I'm going to say they have a very good chance. I do believe that they could win a championship if we're talking about James Harden getting back in championship shape. If Kyrie Irving coming back and has the right, mentality and the right spirit to compete at that type of level. Because when you're trying to win a championship, it takes 100% of your focus, everything you eat, the way you sleep, everything that you think about. So if Kyrie Irving's, mind or spirit or whatever it is not in that place right now for whatever reason, then that's going to be very difficult. If James Harden stays in kind of in the shape that he's in right now, that's going to be very difficult. But if they come back and they all get physically and mentally right, then they're going to be a force to reckon with.
Well, let's talk about what they will look like together on the floor. KD and Harden, of course, they played together. We just heard Woj say that the 2 of them sort of orchestrated this. They wanted to play together. How do they work together now? We know KD is the most prolific scorer of his generation, and obviously Harden dominates the ball. How do they play together now?
Well, it's all about sacrifice. Whenever, Kevin Durant says that he's going to go to Golden State, or LeBron James and Chris Bosh say they're going to go to Miami, or you get Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett going to Boston. Whenever you get these big 3s, the first thing that you need to say is that there's going to be sacrifice. I'm going to have to average 25 instead of 35 if I'm James Harden. And a lot of it is going to be because some nights you should be blowing out teams, so you shouldn't be playing that much in the 4th quarter. This is a very different big 3 than we've seen in a long time. Even the one in Golden State, when you're talking about Clay, Steph, and Kevin Durant, they were all ball movers. They were shooters. They would run around and play off the ball. And you had guys that could feed them easy jump shots, and you couldn't double anywhere. Where these 3 players are all very, very good ball dominant players. So they're all going to have to tweak their game, shoot some more spot up shots. That's going to be the key thing. And last thing, if you're going to win a championship, even with a great offense, you need great defense. The Nets were already, in a kind of a struggle in their defensive area. That was probably the one area that they want to improve on. So adding James Harden to that, obviously that's not a defensive improvement. It's an offensive improvement, but that's one of the areas that they'll need to address down the stretch.
Yes, no one has ever said, we got James Harden, our defense is going to be terrific. So let me then go to you on Kyrie. You played with him in Cleveland, and so you know him. It's such an understandable situation right now for so many people. What is your best sense of where this thing goes?
I truly and truly don't know. And I stand by this. You look at all the WNBA players that took time off to focus on social injustice. You look at all the NBA players that chose to not go into the bubble for, whether they just didn't have it in them. They just didn't, like, there was just too much going on. There was other areas that they wanted to focus in on. If Kyrie Irving wants to focus on something other than basketball, and he wants to focus on social injustice, if he wants to focus on social change, we 100% support him. The one issue is that there has to be 100% transparent communication. Kyrie Irving, even himself, donated $1 million to the WNBA fund to help pay for some of the salaries of the women that were sitting out to fight change. So we fully support Kyrie in that. But you can't have your head coach that you endorse sit down after you not show up for game one and have him say, well, I haven't spoke to Kyrie. I reached out to him. I haven't heard anything back. Since then, there has been communication. But ultimately, whatever Kyrie needs, if he needs time off, if he needs, to, seek and talk to somebody just to get whatever his passion is back. But Stephen A. said that basketball has not been a priority for Kyrie. And, right now that seems to kind of be the census.
I've got literally 15 seconds. But if he doesn't come back, or if he isn't a part of it, KD and Harden and what they have around them, what is that? Is that they win the East?
I think it's the second best tandem in the NBA behind LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So that makes them the best tandem in the Eastern Conference, which if they're healthy and they can build around them, then all of a sudden you look at a pretty good potential finals matchup.
Okay, outstanding. RJ, great to see you again, my friend. Thank you very much for the perspective this morning.
Because now, because ultimately what this is about for the Nets is the future of Kevin Durant. And free agency comes up quickly again, at the end of next season. All three of these players could be free agents, but most importantly for the Nets, Kevin Durant. And they've got to know that they're going to be able to be in position to re-sign him and have at least one significant running mate moving forward with him. And James Harden allows them to have that. These two players really hatched the idea of getting Harden to the Nets in the offseason when they were working out in LA. And while I think the immediate expectation is that Kyrie Irving is going to be a part of this, that he will return here at some point, Brooklyn now knows that they have James Harden and much more certainty with him and partnering with Kevin Durant. And we'll see what this means for Kyrie's future with the Nets.
Doesn't seem it's going to be anytime especially soon either way. Woj, outstanding, as always. Thank you. Let me bring in the big fella. Kendrick Perkins is ready to go this morning. Perk, what was your very first reaction when you saw the news yesterday? Woj breaking it on Twitter. What was your very first reaction when you saw the deal?
Man, that Sean Marks and the Brooklyn organization was like, hold on, we already filed a missing person report on Kyrie Irving, and we haven't heard from him. So let's call Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and get us some insurance in James Harden. And that's why they traded for him, Greeny, because they don't know what's going on in Kyrie Irving's head. No one knows. Here it is. We're not even 15 games in the season, and no one can find him. And he's already left the team and already is being a distraction. So looking at this right now, you're adding James Harden. This is the problem that I have with this team now that they added James Harden is that Kevin Durant is going to be the Batman. James Harden is going to be the Robin. Can Kyrie Irving handle being Alfred? And I don't know that. So this is an insurance policy to say, you know what? We don't know what to expect from Kyrie Irving down the line, but here we go. We got us another superstar, an MVP type player to pair along with Kevin Durant, just in case Kyrie Irving decides to pull the MIA act again.
So let's live in a world, though, where the three of them are on the same team. At some point here, I think we could assume that the three of them will play together. You were a part of a super team in Boston. Some might say the first super team with Paul Pierce and Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett. So you've seen how those pieces fit together. How would you envision these three pieces fitting together?
Well, Greeny, think about it, right? They're going to have so much offensive power. The word that comes to mind is sacrifice, and that's going to come on Steve Nash. All those guys going to respect Steve Nash and when he identifies their role. Like I said, KD being the Batman, James Harden being the Robin, and Kyrie being the Alfred. And then when you look at it on the defensive end, Greeny, no team has won a championship without being top 5 in the defensively. Even the Golden State Warriors, when KD joined them, they were top 3 in the league defensively. So sacrifice and defense is what my concern is about this team when those 3 step on the court. If they step on the court together.
Yeah. One other very quick thing I want to ask you about, because I love your Twitter feed. And you had a very interesting tweet last night that I want to share with everyone who did not get a chance to see it. Let's put that up if we can. You tweeted, "I don't need to be convinced that Bron is the GOAT. It's stamped. But if this Nets team can make it out of the East and Bron takes care of them, he's the undisputed GOAT. Beating 2 super teams today is greater than 6-0 in the 90s. Carry on." That's what you said last night. Give me a quick thought on that. Big Perk.
Because, Greeny, I knew you was watching. I know you was watching. Stephen A. was watching. That was for Jalen Rose, and that was for all the old heads. Because if the Nets get past the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers, and they meet up with the Lakers in the finals, I don't want to hear nothing about the GOAT conversation no more from none